What's going on, folks? And we're back, and joining me is Bob Owens from Bearing Arms. And when we left, we wanted to kind of talk about our priorities now. Now that we've gotten the election out of the way, now that we've prevented Hillary Clinton from destroying everything we know, what do you? I want to get your opinion. I know I have mine, and we can get that later. But what do you think is the most important thing we need to do now?
Well, I think what we're going to see now, we've got President-elect Trump. We have a House and Senate that are Republican. We have Democrats that are absolutely reeling at this point. And so what I think we should probably try to do is go ahead and take his list of Second Amendment issues and go ahead and start rolling some laws out. There's some very low-hanging fruit we should get to pretty easily. Mm-hmm. The National Hearing Protection Act. Get suppressors out of the NFA. Treat them just, like what they are. They're a muffler. Hiram Percy Maxim created the gun muffler and the car muffler at the same time. That's all this is a muffler for a firearm. Yep. Make those easy so old guys like me who shoot a lot can hear better.
I mean, I already have tinnitus, so I don't want it to get worse.
Exactly. You shoot a few hundred, a few thousand rounds a year, even with hearing protection, it starts to take a toll on you over time.
Yep.
We've got the National Concealed Carry Reciprocity. There's several different flavors of bills ready to go. Let's go ahead and push that out there. There's all sorts of pro-gun stuff we can do. There's a push on to repeal the Hughes Amendment. Mm-hmm. For people who really like turning money into smoke and noise. Yeah. Yes, exactly. So, the National Firearms Act, we've already got machine guns regulated. I don't see where a gun made in April of 1986 and one in September of 1986 are any different.
Yeah.
So, let's go ahead and repeal those low-hanging fruit. There's all sorts of good things we can do for the people of the United States very quickly with a minimum of fanfare. And I think we should go ahead, now that we've got a pro-gun president in the White House, let's go ahead and take care of that. And, for those of you out there, including myself, who are a little skeptical on whether Trump really is pro-gun, this gives him a chance to prove it. It will give him a legislative record.
I had a friend ask me today, actually. He was like, so what are you going to do if Trump doesn't say or do? What if Trump does some anti-gun? And I was like, well, I mean, at that point, anybody and everybody can get it. For me, I'm about protecting my Second Amendment rights. I don't care what you look like, what you sound like, where you're from, any of that. Him being who he is, and this goes for anyone. I don't care who you are. Is once you start intruding on my rights, we're gonna have a problem.
Exactly.
And go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, one of the things I found most refreshing is if you go to Trump's website, you pull up his documentation on the Second Amendment. He recognizes that gun ownership is not a right granted to us by the Constitution. Mm-hmm. He understands that it's a pre-existing natural right. Can you do
me a favor, Bob?
Sure.
Say that again and loudly.
Let me see. Firearms ownership is not a right granted to us by a piece of paper, even a really nice piece of parchment from the 1700s. It is a pre-existing natural human right that every human being was born with. It was something that was granted to us by our Creator, whatever you want to name them.
I have to deal with that concept so much when I talk to people about guns who don't necessarily see things my way. And they talk about it as if the Constitution is the thing giving me these rights. And I have to explain to them, to be honest, sometimes I even start the conversation like this. I was like, to be honest with you, I don't need the Second Amendment to justify my Second Amendment. I don't need the Constitution to justify my Second Amendment rights. I don't need it. It just tells me that I have something that I already know that I have. And
I mean, the Constitution, if people really look at it, the Bill of Rights in particular, it is nothing more or less than a big document that constrains government.
Yeah.
That's the purpose of the Constitution. It doesn't give you anything. It tells government what it is allowed to have, which should be a very small part of our overall life.
Absolutely. And then as far as the national reciprocity, for me, that's the biggie, at least for me. And it's more selfish than anything. It's just I can go ad nauseum about how annoying and frustrating and just unbelievably inconvenient it is to deal with having to navigate the different carry laws. Can I carry my weapon here? Can I carry it there whenever I travel? It is something that I honestly believe I shouldn't have to do. It's a stupid problem to have. If I have a license to carry a firearm, why am I now incapable of doing that because I'm in another part of the country that I live in that grants me this right to carry the gun in the first place?
Exactly. I mean, I can carry, let's say I'm here in North Carolina, I want to travel to go visit some friends in New York. I'm fine when I, leave my home state. I hit Virginia, I'm good. If I go up through if I take the route up through West Virginia and Pennsylvania, I'm good. But for some reason, as soon as I hit that New York state line, all of a sudden I'm not a responsible human being.
No, you're right. You're right. And another thing too, I think talking about this now, I think we've been so focused on dealing with the stuff that they're trying to push through, and they still are. It's not like it's over. But I think now what people are going to start to realize, people who don't necessarily agree with the Second Amendment right, or just don't follow the debate that closely, is they're going to start to understand a lot of the stuff that we had to deal with that they didn't realize we had to. Because thus far, the conversation on a national level has been about silly little things like universal background checks, just the empty rhetorical talking points. I think anyone who's looking at this objectively and then realizes, wait a minute, so you have a license to carry a firearm, but you can't carry it to this state or this state or this state, or you have an SBR and you want to carry it to this state, but you have to ask the government ahead of time, and then you have to wait and see if you can do that. So now my entire travel is dictated by the firearms that I own.
Yeah.
And I think people don't really understand that. But I think now we're in a much better position when we start taking up a more of an offensive role in protecting this right. And I know it sounds a bit of an oxymoron, but becoming a little bit more offensive, I think will then start to not only change the political strategy, but also change the cultural dynamic and the way people see the Second Amendment in this country.
Well, absolutely. And, it was, you and I were on Cam Edwards' show. I think maybe a year back when we were talking about the difference between gun culture 1.0 and gun culture 2.0. And it has really evolved a great deal. It used to be that I was your stereotypical gun owner. It was the southern, rural, fat old white guy and friends. Well, you're not
that fat. I think I got about a couple pounds on you, brother.
But that was the stereotype of a gun owner.
Yeah.
And these days, man, anybody can be a gun owner. Half the time you go out to the range, it could be somebody's grandma. It can, I've got an Iranian friend who is, an Iranian redneck Southern hunter. He's out there.
Yeah.
Anybody's a gun owner these days. You can't just say it's this group or that group. Everybody's starting to get into it. Yep. And the stereotypes are dying. We're seeing younger shooters, female shooters, people of different colors, creeds, backgrounds. And it's fascinating to watch this develop because it's not something that anybody has pushed on them.
Yeah.
It has been one of those things where people have realized, hey, I have this really cool right that I was born with that I can exercise.
Yep.
And by the way, it's really a whole heck of a lot of fun. and a large part of that is people like you who do go out and you've got a history of making these videos of showing how much fun these things can be. And I think that's really helped grow the culture.
No, and the funny thing is, it's even with the stereotype, they've always colored it in a way that made it seem like there's something inherently wrong with, like there was something wrong with gun culture 1.0. I think 2.0 was just a natural evolution of things to come. And I really honestly think it was more of an optics thing, more so than an actual, a phenomenon that actually happened. I think the people were always there. It's just the way it had been colored. Because if you notice the natural progression from 1 to 2.0 also happened in line with the way we started using the internet. And how we started going to the internet more for our information instead of relying on TV and the cable news networks and things of that nature. And so I think all it did was more or less shine a light on a group of people who the other side was working very hard to keep out of the spotlight in terms of them being gun owners. And so I think that's how you got this kind of natural progression into 2.0. And then I think one of the other beautiful aspects of it too is just how we all get along, but yet somehow we're not supposed to. We're just supposed to be, like, there's no way I could be here and hang out with somebody who's from gun culture 1.0 and I'm 2.0. Like, even now, I'm pretty sure they're going to try to start segmenting us apart in that regard too. But before I talk us to death, we got to take a quick break, and we'll come back. We'll finish that topic, and then we'll talk about some of the protests that happened over the course of about 24 hours.